Hi everyone, I'm Heather Wen, a retired nurse practitioner and the founder and practitioner at Arizona Healing Alternatives. On this channel you'll find several videos, what I like to call aha moments, where we'll be discussing issues that impact your health. So whether you decide to use Western medicine, alternative medicine, or even a mix of both, I'm passionate about you knowing what your options are. So I grew up watching The Love Boat. Should I admit that? Because that shows my age. But basically, I grew up watching it. I thought it was so cute, although everything got solved like in 30 minutes to an hour. But basically, we're going to be talking about kind of like The Love Boat. Which cabin are you in? Are you in the falling in love aspect of the cabin? Or are you in the, oh my gosh, I'm in something I shouldn't be in and needing to get off that boat right away? This love series is not for kids. All of my videos I put on YouTube are not for children, but especially this is not for kids. So the disclaimers are not for kids. And also, once I've always said in like my other communication videos, I am not a licensed clinical psychologist or psychiatrist or marriage and family counselor. I don't have that background. I have a background in helping people as a nurse practitioner and a background now in emotional reprogramming through applied kinesiology and hypnosis. But I am going to put in this series slides up because they came from some very, very good articles on the subject, and this particular website also takes people to where you can get help, and I'm going to be putting those things up because if it's beyond what I can do, I want you to know where you can get some help. So stay tuned for our love series and figuring out on the Love Boat which cabin you're in. So now in part 2, we're going to talk about the chemistry of love. We just had Valentine's Day, so hopefully y'all had a great Valentine's Day. And now let's break it down into some different parts as to what is the brain doing, what are our hormones doing, what actually causes love or sensations of love or lust, what causes stuff like that. So what I really enjoyed, I enjoyed reading this article by the Harvard Graduate School, and this person wrote an article on sort of the chemistry of love itself. So as we're keeping on our love boat and we're on the cabin of love and lust and all this stuff, let's figure out what is the brain doing? Why do we have these feelings to begin with? Now that we talked about part 1 of what love is and what love means to you, let's look at how this breaks down in the body. So the first thing, I love this article, and I'm going to post a little thing on that article and where you guys can to read this because I think they put it best, but I'll do a little synopsis for you. So the first thing they do is break this down in this article to number 1, lust, number 2, attraction, and number 3 is that attachment to somebody. Well, how does that even happen? And of course, there are going to be differences in everybody's body because everybody has different reactions to their own hormones and their own brain chemistry. So it starts, if we think about lust itself, it actually, let's just look first of all as to how the brain is wired. Okay, so our brain has different receptors for different chemicals, and I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm going to go through a couple of really important ones when it comes to this subject. First one is going to be about dopamine. Dopamine is our pleasure, and brains are wired for a dopamine hit or to get pleasure sensations. That's just human nature, folks, I'm afraid. So when it comes to dopamine, that's one of the things, but also with dopamine, there's also adrenaline or norepinephrine and epinephrine. That's kind of, it's part of it's our fight or flight, but it's also that excitement. It's why, like adrenaline junkies or whatever, it's all those different things. So they break it down into, first of all, what happens is that brain really wants to have the pleasure centers activated, and they can be activated with any of the other things. So when they break down to brain and hormones, because it's things like the pituitary and hypothalamus, all sorts of different areas of the brain that are related to secreting different sorts of chemicals. So when it comes to lust, no surprise, that comes down to estrogen and testosterone. Those are hormones, male and female type hormones. Now, men and women have the same hormones just at different levels. So we all have the progesterone, the estrogen, the testosterone, but it's different levels as to what comes out in different things. So when it comes to lust, actually estrogen and testosterone seem to be the main culprits with that. That when you see somebody and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, there's just no better word, lust, then that's related to those two. So then they go into, so what actually makes attraction? And attraction is that when that's coupled with the dopamine receptors and the things that we talked about with that sort of adrenaline or norepinephrine, those sorts of things, then it's coupled with that, which leads to that sort of attraction. Oh my gosh, I'm thinking about that person all the time. What am I going to do? And when you think about that person, if the dopamine goes off, if those pleasure centers go off, then that can lead someone to think about somebody a lot or want to be next to them, or chemically, we talk about chemical attraction, this sort of thing. So in attraction also, there's also those fun things like that giddy sensation, oh my gosh, your heart starts racing, that kind of stuff. That kind of leads you into understanding what those things are about. So with attraction though, there's oxytocin. Oxytocin is a very important hormone, and also vasopressin, which has to do with some other chemical reactions in the body. But what I find so interesting is the oxytocin piece, especially coming from me being a labor and delivery nurse in the past and a women's healthcare nurse practitioner. What we know about oxytocin, people call oxytocin like the cuddle hormone, right? That it makes you feel attached to somebody, and it can be elicited a bunch of different ways. Now, when I was a labor and delivery nurse, what we did was it was chemically made in the pharmacy to be Pitocin. And Pitocin, it does a lot of things. What it does is it contracts down the uterus so that the baby can come out, for a lack of a better term. So what we need to do is that's done, and it also decreases bleeding afterwards. But surprisingly enough, when a woman breastfeeds, it also secretes naturally in the body, it's called oxytocin, to help that mom bond with the baby. Now, does that mean if you didn't breastfeed that you're not bonded to your baby? No, because other things can set off that oxytocin, such as touch and hugging and all sorts of things, which is why it's called the cuddle hormone. So what's fascinating about all that stuff is depending on how much you secrete, depending on what's going on, depending on chemical factors, even smell, all sorts of other things that relate to the feelings of love, it comes down to what that elicits in your specific body with a specific person. And many times the differences in men and women are oftentimes men and women, and this is generalities, so this is not everybody is like this, but in many cases, women and men think differently and respond differently to different things. And oftentimes there's the lust factor. And many people out there, it's the lust factor, and they think that's what love is. And then they get into the lust and they get into sex. And then sometimes oxytocin is secreted and sometimes it's not. So for some people, they may feel really bonded and attached when they have sex with somebody, and for others, not. And more often than not, men are a little bit different in that department than women are, which can lead a lot of people in the long run to get hurt. But we're talking about the benefits right now. So just enjoy the ride right now, because we'll get into the other stuff. But some of the benefits of all those hormones and all that stuff working through are oftentimes it can lower blood pressure. We found that people in love also, they tend to live longer. That people that have love in their lives tend to be healthier. And like I said, lowering blood pressure, and also decreasing risks for heart disease, also longevity, and increasing your immunity. So especially these days, increasing immunity, well, it always is very, very important. So there's some really, really good positive benefits when all these hormones work together. Very positive. Like we talked about, it starts in the brain. It starts with, those pleasure centers. It goes into then the hormones, estrogen, testosterone, and then eventually attachment. So I'm going to leave that article up. It's really kind of a cool article, but it lets you know that love is beneficial. When it's good, positive, chemical sensations, it can be really positive. So stay tuned for the next one. On part 3, we're going to go through the not so positives, but right now we're in love month. So we're on our love boat, we're in the really cool, wonderful sections of our cabin. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed what you've seen, please feel free to hit the subscribe button and notification bell, and leave any comments that you have in the comment section, and I'll be happy to respond to you. So enjoy the love, my friends, and I'll see you for the next part.